Now, if it happens to be that the spade on the side, on the right-hand side, is a little bit thicker, as you start to turn this unit on and the bolt is turning counterclockwise, it will actually grab this edge first, and literally as you try to tighten it, it will spin the connector right off. So you're trying to hold it up in there. In the meantime, the pressure of you turning on this knob is actually creating a downward force that's pushing your connector out. So it's one of the things that we found really inconsistent about this particular connector. Although it's still a really great connector, it isn't as perfect as we'd like it to be. That's why we started to go to our own connector that you can see here. Now these are a milled surface. So the milled surface, instead of having a pressed surface, is a lot more consistent in the total amount of space on the top. So as we put the connector in and we tighten it down, we're just tightening these slightly finger tight, this one here doesn't want to wobble nearly as much, nor as you turn the actual connector here, will it want to spin off. Now, what are we doing? What is this all about? Some of these things are so expensive and some of them are so pretty, sometimes we think we shouldn't damage these, we shouldn't wreck them. We've got to make sure, that we don't cause any scratches in our spades. Well, that's kind of ridiculous. What it is, it's a nut and bolt. It's designed to be able to attach your speaker cables to your amplifier securely. What you should have to be able to tighten is a good old-fashioned wrench. Because both of these materials, the copper on the binding post and the copper here, copper is a great choice also because it's a very soft material. So as you start to turn your binding post in, you're going to find that as you turn it, this copper, because it's a soft material, will start to mold together, make lots more contact surface. The harder the material, the harder it is for that to happen, the more difficult it will be to get a really good electrical connection. Now, of course, the reason why these have a nut-style head on them is because they are a nut. Basically, what you want to do is you want to take a wrench and you want to tighten your nut as tight as you can without the possibility of stripping off a thread or something like that. So your manufacturer should be able to tell you what the torque spec is for your binding post. Now, of course, lots of manufacturers think like some of us as audiophiles, and we believe that that part here, that mechanical part, is not really an important thing. It's just how pretty it is that makes it really important. And of course, that's not at all the case. So if they tell you that you don't have to torque them at all, then you just want to play with it yourself and try to get as much torque as you possibly can wherever you feel comfortable with that. But you'll notice that it makes quite a bit of difference. The other thing that I've noticed is that if you have one side torqued more than the other, is it can literally pull the soundstage a little bit to the left or a little bit to the right. So as you're tightening your binding posts, you want to have them set the same. Again, the Precision Torque Driver, available on Virtual Dynamics website, is an awesome tool for being able to allow us to go in and set the exact amount of torque on each one of those spades. So as you put your spades in, you can torque them up and have the same amount of pressure on each one of these, which will help to be able to make the conductivity a little bit more consistent. We get a lot of requests for banana connectors. In a lot of manufacturing of high-end machinery, when people are building products like amplifiers, they may think that really the most important part of an audio system is the amplifier. If you talk to me, I'll tell you it's the cabling. And if you talk to somebody else, they may tell you it's their loudspeaker. So we all have those areas that we think are the most important. The truth is that everything is the most important. One weak link in the chain will always cause your audio system to fail or cause distortion at that point. And that's something as an audiophile you don't want at all. So when it comes to connectors, the reason that we don't offer a banana is because bananas have a very, very difficult challenge. One, they need to hold a cable in place. And in order to be able to hold a cable of any sort of reasonable gauge size so you can get good conductivity, you got to put it inside that little hole right there. Now, what kind of material can you put inside there and not have it break? The most conductive materials, of course, are copper and silver and brass. But any one of those, when put inside a connector like the banana is supposed to go inside this 5-way binding post, what will happen is that it's so soft, it will actually literally break off. Or it won't have any tension, spring tension, to be able to make a good contact with. So as I started to pull apart bananas and take a look at the quality of manufacturing, many of the very high-end, very expensive banana connectors that we had been using on our original cables were actually made out of like cast material or what we used to call pot metal. And of course, that's not a good conductor at all, or not a good connector at all, and I highly don't recommend it. So if you have to use a banana, one of the things you might want to take a look at doing is trying to remove the original binding post that would only accept your bananas and put in a good 5-way binding post like a copper one that you've seen earlier that we got from Cardass. So what's the final word on connectors? Well, basically I can leave you with this. Try if you can to find a good quality copper connector and clean it often. If you get a product from Virtual Dynamics, we're going to clean it with a product called Protex. It's a 6-ring carbon lubricant, and it slows oxidization down quite dramatically. In fact, it's warranted for life not to oxidize. However, oxidization is still going to happen at a fairly slow rate. We also treat our Hubble receptacles. After we cryogenically treat them, we treat them with Protex too, so that they're going to keep the ability to be able to resist oxidization for a good long period of time. So those are a couple of things that you can do that are more realistic than even plating options. But in tough environments where you've got things like spades, it is a good idea to get a good plating material over top, and the gold in this particular case is great, and silver is great too. The problem with silver for plating material is that silver oxidizes very quickly and looks just like a mess in a very short period of time. Now, it's still as conductive as it used to be, but it sure looks horrible. So when we've used silver in the past, we got a lot of comments from people that were highly concerned that it wasn't going to be a good conductor because it looked so dirty. Now, that had nothing to do with it on silver. Of course, when you've got copper in that same condition, it's not very conductive at all, so that's something to be aware of. The alternative plating materials that you can see on, like, say, hospital-grade connectors. Hubble has a hospital-grade connector, and if you talk to people at Hubble about why they use the nickel plating over top of the actual spade itself, which is their Hubble brass, of course, why do they use nickel over top of it? Because nickel's more conductive? No, not at all. Only because nickel has a better ability to be able to withstand the detergents and stuff that they wash walls with. So you have to be fairly aware of what you're doing when you're buying a conductor. There's a lot of different things out there, and again, as we started to go in, as we did on this binding post, to take a look at what we'd been told and what's actually the truth when we actually take the covering of the material off, what we're actually looking at may possibly be different, even in high-end audio. So I'm going to leave you with this. If conductors are really important to you, or connectors are really important to you, find a good copper one like you've got in the Ferutech here, and that'll get you by. But don't make that the single buying port of your audio system. Because if all I'm really offering you is a good quality connector on a piece of wire that doesn't do much, what is it going to offer you? You can do that at home yourself. I'm Rick Schultz. Thanks for watching the Audiophile.